You know, life has a funny way of turning tables. Just a few years ago, I was stuck in a dead-end job, barely making ends meet, filled with self-doubt and a gnawing fear that I'd never break free from the cycle of struggle. Friends and family had their whispers. Some believed I was just chasing a pipe dream, while others would roll their eyes the moment I mentioned my psychology degree. It felt like I was invisible in a world that handed out validation like candy to the privileged and the well-connected. But then there was Harrison Wheeler, a real estate mogul, who couldn't seem to keep a nanny for more than a few weeks. I saw that chaotic storm through his mansion, the mansion filled with luxury but haunted by the laughter of six little girls struggling in the shadow of his grief. You'd think a man with his wealth would have it all figured out right. Instead, it became a circus, and he had fired over 100 nannies convinced no one could handle his daughters. I was just looking for a way to pay for that degree. Little did he know I had done my homework. I wasn't going into that interview as just another employee. I was walking into that mansion with the knowledge of the man I was up against, the prejudice that lay beneath his polished surface. I was stepping into a real-life game of power, ready to flip the script and prove to both him and myself that I was more than the hardships I'd faced. The moment that changed everything came on a Thursday morning, just another day in the life of a maid, or so I thought. I was juggling breakfast for the six girls, who were as chaotic as a tornado in a dollhouse, when Harrison barged in, his usual scowl replaced by something darker. "Keisha," he said, his voice low and menacing. "We need to talk." I set down the syrup-sticky pancakes and turned to face him. "What's the matter?" He tossed a stack of papers onto the marble island like a grenade. "These. You need to sign them." Boarding school for the girls. My heart raced. Boarding school, Harrison, they don't get dramatic. It's for their own good. They need discipline. They're wild. I could feel the anger boiling in my veins. You mean they need you to care? They don't need to be shipped away like unwanted cargo because you're too busy playing mogul to notice. He laughed a cruel, dismissive sound. "You think you can teach me about parenting? You're just a maid." Every pain, every moment of feeling small flooded back, igniting a fire within me. Maybe you should have thought twice before hiring me. I've seen trauma, Harrison. I know what those girls are going through. You think throwing money at their problems will fix them? It won't. His eyes narrowed. You presume too much. Don't get in over your head, Keisha. You're expendable. And right then, the weight of his words hung in the air, but I felt something shift. I was tired of being underestimated, tired of his arrogance. You don't know who you're dealing with. I may be a maid, but I'm also a master's student and a warrior for these girls. I won't let you throw them away. That was my moment of clarity. I wasn't here to serve. I was here to fight. The battle lines were drawn, and it was time to take the fight to him. You know, at first it felt like I was playing a game where the odds were stacked against me like curling on ice while standing on marbles. I spent those early weeks trying to connect with the girls, and every time I thought I was making headway, it was like trying to grab a slippery fish. Just when you think you've got a hold on it, it flips right out of your hands. The skepticism from the girls was thick. What does she know about us? They'd whisper to each other, their eyes filled with that mix of hurt and defiance. Harrison. Good gracious. He was a whole different animal. Picture this. I try my best to create a little sanctuary for the daughters amid the chaos of their lives. But here comes Dad. arms crossed, looking at me like I just spilled grape juice on his brand new suit. "You're not a therapist. You're just a maid," he'd scoff, tossing aside my ideas like they were last week's leftovers. Folks, I'd think a little kindness could go a long way, but instead I got a whole heap of rejection. There were days I felt like giving up. Like, who was? I kidding, a maid trying to change the world, one tantrum-prone teenager at a time. But then, as I overheard the plans for their futures, the boarding schools, and twilight check-ins, I could feel this fire bubbling inside me. Was I really going to let their dad push them into emotional exile? Heck no. Just when the storm clouds of doubt and frustration felt like they'd drown me, I felt a spark, a tiny flame that said, "Not today." It was messy, it was exhausting, and I'm pretty sure I lost my sanity over a dozen times. But deep down, I knew that storm was just the prelude to something bigger. Because I wasn't just fighting for the girls, I was fighting for a world in which they could be whole again. And on some days, that spark was all I needed to keep pushing through. After all, building something great often starts with rebuilding from nothing, right? Turning point voice over script. Kesha felt the weight of betrayal heavy in her chest. Harrison's words echoed in her mind, demanding loyalty with a signature, all while masking significant neglect. She could see it in the girl's eyes, the quiet defeat. The life being drafted for them would stifle their potential. Heart racing. It would be easy to fall apart, to crumble under the pressure of his arrogance. But then, a flicker. She had paid the price for every mistake. She had buried shadows of her past. She had fought too hard and survived too long to let this moment mark her failure. Keisha took a breath, a deep, grounding breath. This was not the end, this was the beginning. In that realization, clarity emerged. Harrison thought he had it all figured out, the empire, the control, the privilege. But his ignorance was as glaring as the chandelier hanging above them, glistening yet fragile. With steady resolve, Keisha faced him. "You may have the money, the house, and the power, but you don't own these girls' futures." She dropped the documents onto his desk, the weight of truth crashing down like thunder. Her research, her evidence, the names of every nanny he discarded, along with their scars, she had it all meticulously laid out. And then softly but firmly she revealed, "I'm a master's student specializing in trauma. You underestimated me." In that moment, she saw him, his composure waver, doubt creeping in. The room shifted. That spark ignited within her, catching fire. Keisha felt herself transforming from the underdog to an unstoppable force. The girls needed her. She knew their pain and their potential. The tide was turning, and Kesha was ready to fight. In the crisp light of dawn, the once chaotic mansion stood eerily quiet as Kesha Williams entered the boardroom, her heart pounding with anticipation and resolve. The air was thick with tension, punctuated only by the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Today there would be an unveiling not just of evidence, but of her journey from anonymity to authority. As Harrison sat across the polished mahogany table, his facade of indifference began to crack. Keisha opened her folder, the meticulously gathered documentation before him, a testament to her tireless efforts. "You think money can silence the truth, Harrison?" She began, her voice steady, "but it doesn't erase the scars on these girls' hearts. Your daughters deserve more than just your wealth. They deserve your attention, your love." In that moment, the power pivoted. Through a series of carefully recorded phone calls, shocking admission transcripts, and her undeniable empathy, Kesha brought forth a reality Harrison had desperately tried to deny. The pounding on the door interrupted their tete-a-tete, and Child Protective Services entered the uniformed figures, casting a stark contrast to the opulence of the room. A palpable shift in the atmosphere took place. Harrison's expression morphed from disbelief to dread. As the officers spoke with Kesha, she couldn't suppress a quiet smirk. It wasn't just about the victory over him. It was about the future she had helped carve for the 6 girls who'd felt invisible for far too long. 2 years later, Kesha stood in her new office, framed certificates lining the walls, a child psychologist now revered and respected. The daughters, thriving in her nurturing environment, were living proof that honesty and compassion could outshine even the darkest of circumstances. But she knew success wasn't a shield. It was a reminder that the scars of her journey remained now transformed into pathways of empathy and strength. Keisha Williams had not just proven them wrong, she had woven their pain into a tapestry of hope. A narrative where every struggle served a greater purpose, changing everything. As we reflect on this remarkable journey, it's evident that Keisha Williams transformed in ways she never imagined. Once simply a maid searching for a way out of poverty, she became an advocate for the very girls she was meant to care for. Through her experiences in Harrison Wheeler's opulent but suffocating mansion, Kesha learned that true power doesn't lie in wealth or status, but in the ability to empathize and uplift others. She faced the question that lurks in the shadows of our lives. Is revenge a form of justice, or does it merely perpetuate a cycle of suffering? Harrison believed his privilege granted him the authority to dismiss Keisha, but in his arrogance he failed to see the strength that comes from understanding and compassion. In the end, while his daughters flourished under Kesha's guidance, Harrison was left to confront the emptiness of his paternal negligence and prejudice. Was his downfall a form of karmic payback, or did Kesha's journey illustrate a more profound truth that healing, not revenge, is where true justice lies? The narratives we weave around power, trust, and retribution can be divisive, sparking endless debate. What do you think? Is revenge ever justified? Or is it the antidote to healing that we sometimes romanticize? We'd love to hear your thoughts or similar experiences in the comments below. Together, let's explore the stories that challenge us and reshape our understanding of human connection.